Everybody ready? Good. Then let's get going. Nearly forgot you guys. Hey everyone, a really warm welcome back. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for being here and supporting the channel. It's really great to have you along. In today's video, I want to talk about this thing. This is the lock and level leveling device. And I bought this because I was having some terrible trouble with our motor mover. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll have seen me moaning quite frequently about how terrible it is, and the rollers are forever slipping on the tyres. And as an adult on my own with the kids, sometimes a mover is absolutely vital because we can't shift 1400 kilos around, and sometimes we have to park nose in. So the motor mover is incredibly important to me and makes this possible, really. So anyway, another video will moan about the motor mover, but today let's concentrate on this. This is the lock and level, and I just wanted to show you it in the bag and get it out so you can see what it looks like, and then I'll insert some footage of us using it the past few times we've been on grassy pitches, I think both times, and have used it to get ourselves nice and level. So I'll show you how it works in real life. So for today, this is it. It comes in just a sort of pea bag, I guess it is. So it's a nice small package. It's reasonably heavy for a small package, so that's, I think it's about 4 kilos, but it's pretty substantial. Certainly compared to huge, great big leveling ramps, then I'm sure the weight is not much, but I think you notice it because it's such a small package, so it feels quite dense. But compared to overall weight, I'm sure it's not. So it's basically a tube, so it's more like a reinforced pipe with these pieces at each end, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. But let me just spread it out on the floor and then you can see what it looks like and get the idea of the concept. So here's the plan. That's the underside. So you simply flip it over, pop it flat down on the ground. Now, you can't see me, can you? I've been doing some strange angle. So the idea here is that you put a mat underneath, so something like a children's play mat or an old doormat. If you're on a gravel or something that might pierce or over time work its way through this. This is incredibly tough stuff, so I don't think that's likely, but that's a sort of belt and braces approach that is advised by the manufacturer. So you just lay it down flat there, drive your caravan over the top, and then try and get it lined up so that your hub is lined up with this mark in the middle, this bit on the outside obviously. Once the caravan's in position, all the handbrake on, etc., and then through the valve, just very simply pump it up till you get the desired height on the caravan, and then stop. And then when you're ready to go, make sure you've got all your steadies up and you're ready, and then you just very slowly open the exit valve and the air drains its way down slowly. So for example, you get the caravan ready to go, you get the steadies up, all the rest of it, and perhaps while you were doing your waste or your loo, you would just let the air out of there very slowly indeed. What you don't want to do is sort of whoosh it open and pull this off the end. The manufacturer told me when I bought this at the NEC in February that a lot of people had undone this far too far and it ended up losing the caps. So there's a little hole in the side there, and it just releases the air nice and gently, because you don't want to whoosh it open and have the caravan go bang straight down on the ground. I don't think it would, but you know, humans are humans. We can achieve all sorts of things that were never intended by the manufacturers. So just open that slowly, let the air slowly drain out, and then it'll be flat as a pancake. Drive the caravan off, fold the thing back up, put it in the bag, and off you go. So I guess the only difficult thing for a solo caravaner is if you're pulling it onto the level itself with the caravan rather than motor moving it. Obviously you have no idea when the centre of your wheel is lined up with the centre point here. So our children are old enough now that I'm quite happy having one of them stood here, and as soon as I've got the the wheel hub lined up with the thing shouting stop. If you're on your own, I guess, you know, if you've got your wheel, center wheel back here somewhere, for example, you just work out how far the center of your wheel is from there to there, get a marker with your front of the car itself, and then you just drive forward that amount. You could always leave your door open and look out, and then you should be in fairly good position to set that up. Okay, so let's go and look at the footage from the last couple of times that we've used this thing. Actually, before we do that, let me just show you quickly how it sets up on the driveway here, because I seem to have lost the bit of footage of setting it up when we were actually in the field. This one is for a single axle caravan, and of course this video is in no way sponsored. I paid normal price for this at the February NEC show. And actually, if you're in an Alco wheel lock, it's also very helpful for getting that thing aligned, especially if you've got the twin axle version, but I don't, so that's not what this video is about. There are plenty more of those out there on the tube, and I'll link to some of those above. So for a single axle, you can get your caravan lined up with your wheel and your lock receiver in exactly the right place. Put the lock and level in front of the wheel, pull the caravan backwards or forwards, slide the leveler into place, and then put the caravan back in exactly the right place. But for us, this is just simply a leveling system, because I don't have Alco wheel locks. I use other types. I don't even have a receiver on this van. And then once you're into position with the caravan on top of the level itself, you plug your normal tyre inflator in that you're hopefully carrying around anyway, and then just inflate the thing, keeping an eye on the spirit level until you have got to the right level. And then you simply unclip it the same as you do with a car tyre. And I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. And the only thing to think about is that the maximum pressure that has to go into here is 30 psi. And I don't think we've ever got anywhere near that. I think the last time we were up about 8 centimetres, and I think I was probably somewhere around at 12 psi, 15 psi, something like that. Anyway, I'll show you a bit more about that in a minute, once I've shown you a bit more about the construction. So we were discussing these over on Twitter a few weeks ago, and a few folks said that they wouldn't trust it because effectively it's just a bag of air. So I thought it might be helpful to give a close-up of some of the features and show how we're using it. And of course it is a bag of air, so technically, of course, everybody's saying that is correct, but then so are the tyres on your vehicle. So I thought it might be helpful if I made a video to show how it works for us, and then explain as well as I can from a user perspective, obviously rather than the manufacturer, my understanding of what it is and how it works. So first off, what on earth is it? Well, it is essentially a plastic bag, but this is no supermarket carrier bag. This is a super heavy duty high pressure plastic, the sort of thing that's used for high pressure fire hoses or speedboats or that sort of thing. So in fact, if you look closely, you can see that there's this sort of nylon reinforcing thread running throughout the plastic itself. So it's a wide tube of this flexible reinforced plastic material, sealed together at each end with these, what I presume to be stainless steel or some sort of coated steel ramps, if you like, to both keep the bag sealed and also to provide an easy on and off driving surface. And then those two edges of that are clamped together using these nuts that are embedded in the surface. So I don't know whether, as well as these clamps, there's also some sort of mega bonding adhesive inside, creating a really strong seal, or whether it's just a mechanical seal, but the ends are clamped very tightly closed. And then the only other thing to mention, of course, is the valve, which has got both air in and air out ends. So it's very simple to use. You use it by getting your caravan in the position that you want it, and then, as I said, if you've got Alco wheel locks, making sure that's all lined up, and then putting the bag in front of the center point of the wheel, and then either rolling the caravan backwards or forwards, putting the bag underneath, and then rolling the caravan back in place. But for us, it's much simpler than that. We don't have to get aligned, so we just get the bag exactly where we want it and roll the caravan onto it. If you are using Alco wheel locks, you want to put it on now before you inflate the bag, so there's no chance of anything moving around. And then you just pump up the bag using a normal tyre inflator that you'll probably be carrying in the car anyway, and you just pump it until you're level.
The only thing to be aware of is that you must put no more than 30 psi into the bag, because that's what the seals are rated for. Now, I'm sure with all these things they're tested to much higher pressures than that, but do stick to the 30 psi max because that's what it says in the instructions. And you certainly do not want the bag to be exploding and the caravan to then fall. In his video from a year or two ago, Dan Trudgeon managed to raise his lunar caravan, so pretty heavy one, I think, as far as caravans go. So I think he raised it over 10 centimeters and only got to about 18 psi. So 30 psi should be very high. Now, so far I've only used ours on grass, but it did distribute our weight, so we didn't go sinking, which is great. So usually the hard standings we've come across have been level enough for me not to bother with leveling ramps. But if I did ever need to use this on there, then the advice is to pop a mat underneath. So I've got some spare floor mats, for example, that I carry. So just pop that underneath to make sure that the bag is protected, just in case there's a really sharp edge of something. And over a couple of days it might dig in, for example. But this is incredibly strong stuff, so it's not as if you're trying to hold the caravan up on a balloon, you know. This is some really serious stuff, so just scraping it is not going to cause any injury. So for me as well, because I'm caravanning on my own as a solo adult, you know, putting the ramps in place and then using the car to pull the caravan up them is not a good solution, actually, because either it means I have to leave a child outside telling me when to stop so I don't fly off the end of the ramp, and I'm not happy about doing that, because if anything slips, you know, one of the kids is out there and I can't see directly with my own eyes what's happening. So whenever we're leveling, I much prefer to do it with the mover so that I can see exactly what I'm doing and where each wheel is to make sure we're safe all the time. I've actually discovered some additional benefits of this particular leveling system. And that's that it's much smaller actually than any of the ramps I've ever carried before, which is great, and lighter as well. It's still, you know, if you pick it up, it still feels like a brick. It's less than 4 kilos, so really it's not a large amount of weight, but it does feel like it if you pick it up in your hand, because it's quite dense because it's such a small package. So that's brilliant that it's small and relatively light. And when the caravan wheel first makes contact, it doesn't slip anywhere, you know. No wheel goes anywhere, and the leveler itself doesn't move anywhere at all, so that's really good. So the only difficulty, particularly as a solo adult, I think, is that if you're driving onto it rather than using the motor mover, and I feel much more confident to be able to pull onto it using the car now rather than having to rely on the mover, which is great. But the difficulty, of course, is knowing exactly when the center point of your wheel is aligned with the center of the bag, because you want to get it nicely lined up on the midpoint before you start the inflation process. Now, by now the kids are old enough to be able to stand back and shout stop when the caravan gets to the right place, so I'm quite happy leaving them out there doing that, because there's no danger of me going forwards and not trying to go up a ramp, so that works fine for us. I guess it could be a problem if you are a solo caravaner just on your own though, but I guess in that case, you know, you'd look out at the tow vehicle window and get a relevant marker, so you know, for example, if you have to pull 30 centimeters or 40 centimeters forward, then you just get a marker from where you're stopped in the car itself. So all in all, very good impressions from our first 2 uses. Eventually I'll try and do a sort of long-term review, but so far it's been working really well, and I'm really happy with it. You know, it's great on all sorts of counts. It feels pretty solid when we're up. You know, it's no more or less bouncy than being on the caravan tyres anyway, so that's good. Hopefully at some point I'll get round to making a video about all the different leveling devices we've used and what we found was good and what we found was bad about each particular technique. But for today, that's all for now.
So look at that, that's super neat. And you know, for me that is one of the huge benefits, because this is a tiny caravan, so the smaller or the more multifunctional things can be, then that's a huge benefit. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope it was useful going through the lock and level itself. Some people have said they're worried about it because it's a bag of air, but as I said, so are your tyres, and the joints that are on the ends of these things I think are very secure myself, so I've been really happy using it. Anyway, hope it was useful looking at it. Thanks so much for joining us. Give us a thumbs up and a subscribe if you're so inclined, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now. See ya.